Okay, so this quick tutorial is going to teach you how to render wireframe and full material at the same time. So first thing you need to do is change your rendering setup. So you go to rendering at the top, come down to render setup, and in here change your renderer, which is currently set to scanline. That's the default. Change that to one at the bottom that's called mental ray. That means that we can use a material known as a composite, so it adds two materials onto one. Okay, so change that to mental ray. Close that, we don't need it again, we'll come back to it later. So I've got exactly the same asset, I've just made a duplicate of it by holding down shift and moving it to one side. So in my material editor, here's my initial material that we've got on. So it's just a bitmap working straight onto a standard material, and that one's placed onto both the assets at the moment. So now I'm going to create a second material. So I'm going to start by using composite. So you're used to so far using standard. We're going to use a composite for this. We want to put two textures together. So we plop that one in. So you can see it's got one texture applied to it already. We're going to bring in a second, another standard material, and set that one up as the slot number 2. Okay, so the first one is the base, so whatever the base color of the material is going to be. So at the moment we've got it set to sort of a lightish gray. Change that and darken it slightly. And then the second material is the wire, so the wireframe is going to go over the top. So that one, clearly, if you want it to be bright red, you can, but most of the time you're just going to want it to be black. So set that one to black. Okay, and then the important section right here, you want to make sure that this one is also set to wire. Now, if you look at this image of this ball here now, you can see that we've got a gray, same color that we chose here on the inside, and then it's wired up using black and wire. Cool. With that set up, I'm going to move this down slightly, and then I'm going to select these two, or those sets of assets, and then click and drag that onto those. It'll ask me if I want to apply it to the whole thing or just the one that I just selected. I want to assign it to the whole selection. It looks slightly odd in the viewport, but don't worry, it works perfectly. Minimize that, set up your scene so that it looks nice in terms of the view. If you want to change the background, obviously the standard setup is for it to render in black. If you want to change that, go to rendering again, down to environment, and then you can change here the background color set to black. Switch to a sort of a lighter gray. Okay, minimize that, and then render. So Shift and Q will render, F9 will render, and what we've got there now is a finished, polished model that you can show off, and also someone can see how you've modeled it because they can see the wireframe in there as well. That's what you're expected to do for the AQA work. They'll ask you at some point within the brief to create render sheets. That's a render sheet. So you're seeing a perfect version of the asset and a wireframe version of the asset. Okay.